and by the, by the end of half an hour, you could have some sort of app. This is not that. This is literally months and months of work. And I always buff up against the tokens I'm allowed. And at the moment, I'm spending £50 a month in tokens to code this. So this is not a cheap free job. So what this is I'm going to just go through it. It's a gamified app, and it's really aimed at Generation Z to sort of get people to connect with each other. And the idea of the performance is that I'm going to, in 2028, I'm going to performatively take a P&O 19, well, I don't know, over 4 months, 4 months embodied performative cruise. And I'm going to do that. At one stage, I thought I might actually get on the cruise, but I don't think physically I can do that as a Crip. So I think that's going to be difficult. I did think about working it. Again, I think that's just going to be impossible. So I came up with the idea that on a real-time basis, I would perform the cruise, and I'd do it from home, from my home studio here on the beach, and using this app. So when you come, I ask you to board, and actually I boarded Claude on this the other day. So Claude has actually got a boarding card for my cruise, which Claude seemed to enjoy making. And this takes you through that process of going onto a cruise. Why would you take a climate chaos cruise? Well, of course, it's quite interesting. It's not what you think. It's ironic. And I'd love you to all have a go at this today, if you can, to try and check in on this. I'll give you some links to have a go at that. And it goes through lots of things. So it's not quite the cruise you would think it is. And it's got lots of real-time data that AI updates. So it's looking at all sorts of bits and things. And off we go. So this is my boarding place. And I've checked in, so I'm going to continue my mission. But I can't go on the cruise because I've got insufficient privilege level. And you'll see when you check in and when Claude checks in, Claude can go on the cruise because Claude is privileged. It's quite interesting. They enjoyed that yesterday. So I'm going to acknowledge that. That's my boarding card. And here I am. So, and then I'm going to report for duty. And what am I going to do? So these are the stories and the people that I've already connected with around the world. So these are some of the community stories. And I work in community arts as well. So I do, one of the things I do is Borthfest, which is in my village. And that's when a village of 800 people get around 20,000 visitors over a 4-day period to see art. And I've also organised one in the local town, Aberystwyth. Again, we had 80 artists, 50 businesses, and 4 weeks of real art in the streets. It was great. So these are some community stories, and the whole idea about this app is to try and entreat people to share stories, so that if you wanted to share your story, here you are. It's not extractivism. It's not a showcase. It is connection, and that's the important thing about this. So here's the ship's log. There's nothing in the ship's logs yet. Please put something in today. I would love you to make a log entry. It would be fantastic. I haven't gone through the ethics program yet, but I've got a digital consent rider that you can have a look at. I'll come back to the PhD and the research here, but this is a gallery, and some of the people that are online today have put things in here. These posters are part of the Design Lines exhibition that's on at CSM at the moment. And so Tom's in the room. Tom, look, there you are. And Tom's uploaded his art for us, which is, thank you very much, Tom. Tom's at University of Surrey, looking at AI at the moment for his PhD. So there's artist profile again. Please come and create artist profile. I would love for you to connect. That would be fantastic. My day job funds all of this because I'm 61 now, which means there's no funding for me from the UK. And I tattoo for a living, and I've done that for 20 years now, post leaving my time as an airline pilot. And I look after my kids. They've all grown up now, but I homeschooled them for years, and I paid for that through a tattoo. So I brought this in because this is art to some people. You know, art looks different to many people around the world in different socio-economic groups. So I thought this was important to include it here. And my practice is ethno-autographic, so it was important. What's all this about? Well, obviously, it's the end game of climate chaos. And I thought the ship's casino, it should have one because we're gambling with the planet. So that's what the ship's casino is all about. And I've been sort of vibe coding these games, which is quite interesting. So this is, you know, a little game. Lots of things. This is a simpler one to see, perhaps. Test your luck on the high seeds and spin. It's a nod to wealth skimming and the tech bros and what they're getting from it. I'm non-binary. So I have to represent, really. I think it would be impossible for me not to do that. It would be disingenuous. So this is the Bureau de Change, and you can have a go at a selfie, and you can see what you look like. Please have a go at that. That would be great. This is me, and this is the captain's log, and this is the start, really, I guess, of my PhD. So this is where I've migrated my blog to. So my last post was about the Design Lines exhibition that's on at CSM. But the intriguing bit about this is I would really like this to be my thesis, because one of the things I think about AI is that it's the elephant in the room. Everybody's using it. We know everybody's using it. The students are using it. They're frightened to say. Tutors say to the students, don't tell people that you're using it. I don't want to know that you're using it. Don't get caught out that you're using it. That's ridiculous. I'm 61. I'm not going to hide from anybody. I want to tell you that I'm using it and how I'm using it, and that's really important. So I've developed myself a little study centre here. So this shows you where my journey is. You can see I'm right at the beginning. I'm at year 1, and I've got my supervision and AFR to come up. And then there's all the bits and pieces. So this shows you my journey. But this is my little research centre, and I'm still coding this. The whole thing is still very much work in progress. But there's all sorts of things that you can do in here, and only I can do this. Only I can access this part, and so this is important that I say that. So you can't collaborate in this because of the nature of the PhD as it stands. I've got something for that, because I'd like you to use all these sort of tools, but just to show you, you can get these types of things online, but they're not very good. I've looked at them. They're not very good. They're very specific. They'll probably work best for science. They're very dull. They're very dull to look at and to use. And I really wanted to develop something that was more interesting. So you can see there's lots of resources here, and you can have a go at using some of these. Some are working pretty well, some not so much, but we'll go through it. So I'm just going to stop showing you that. Oh, there's one bit I haven't shown yet, which is the ports of call. There's also Easter eggs embedded in this, because there's ways to gain it, but I'm not going to spoil that. You've got to work your way around around the app. It is a game after all. So I'm going to stop sharing, because I'm going to give you a reading. So I'm going to go back to my screen, hopefully. I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's see. So there's that one. I need to switch things off. Am I back on? Can you see me? No. Oh, there it is. I'll do it. Can you see me now? Don't know. Oh, here we go. No, still can't. Technology. Where? How's that? Back on. Yay! Good. Right, so I'm going to give you a bit of a reading about cosmotechnics. And can you see this book? I'm going to put this in the Padlet, so we'll have some links to this. And this is the lens that I put my research through. It's quite a new philosophy, which I really wanted to explore. So I am, you know, right on the edge of things now. So if you haven't heard of Hugh, he's quite an interesting fellow. And I'm going to read this to you. And just a quickie, because it is a writing retreat after all. This book is fundamentally an attempt to rethink art from the perspective of cosmotechnics and its cosmotechnical future. What can be revealed through this reconceptualization? I have avoided the path of art historians who will ask how technology determines the form and content of art. Instead, I rather pose the question of how the perspective of art can allow us to rethink technology. And I really believe in that. I think science has been telling us what to do for years, and nobody's listened anyway. Politicians don't want to change anything because they're the ones benefiting from whatever this is. And I think it's artists that can make the change. So I'm a big believer in cosmotechnics. And it's decolonial, it's listening to Indigenous knowledge production. And I think it's a really important practice. And so with that in mind, I'm going to show you another app that I've coded. So hope you're ready for this one. So I'm going to try and share again. All right, here we go. So hopefully this, can you see this? Somebody put their mic on and say, yeah, I can see it. Are you seeing the PhD research? Yeah?
I'm seeing it.
Cool. All right. This came about because obviously I've got to sort of close off or put a wall around my PhD research hub in the Climate Chaos Cruise, and that's just academic nonsense, but it's closed, so that's what it is. And this came all about this app because I had a conversation with the librarian and said, well, it's all right you're using AI, but the academic rules are that you've got to show us all the prompts you've used. And I've had about a good 6 months developing the Climate Chaos Cruise. So if you want to read all the prompts that I've put into it, well, good luck with that. And by the time I've finished my PhD, which is part-time, it would be thousands and thousands. It's just, that's impossible. So I thought, how could I make my research open? And that's why the PhD researcher went onto the Climate Chaos Cruise. But then I thought you guys might want to use this. And the problem we've got with AI at the moment is that it is a large language model. It just makes connections and it is trained. And that means it's trained in a bias. And it's trained in a neoliberal, white, heterosexual bias. And that's true. And I've seen that over the last 6 months of really looking into this. Everybody knows it. There's a lot of writing about it, but it's so obvious. It's ridiculous. So I thought, what if I vibe coded my app to be biased, but I'd be biased in the way that I want to be. So it's through quick queer theories, universal lateralism, and to look at geoclimate chaos. And so that's a bias and cosmotechnics, and everything that I've talked about within my research is all in this app. So it's just like a study app that you could pay for, except you can go onto it and it does things slightly differently. Now, this is a vibe coded version of what AI could be in future. You know, AI is not the problem, it's us, we're the problem. How we're training AI is the problem. So this in its very small way is retraining it within a stack that has the bias already, I'm fighting against it. I'm subverting it, if you like. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing that with the Climate Chaos Cruise. I mean, one of the interesting things, every time you change something on the stack, then it sort of rewrites everything. It sort of reassembles it every time. So it will change things, and it will change it back to the bias. So on the Climate Chaos Cruise, there's a message from the captain, and I deliberately coded that as a woman's voice, and it keeps returning it to a male's voice because captains are men. And that's how biased AI is. So I spend a lot of my tokens on that sort of thing. So if you have a look at this, this is just going through. So I'm putting my library into here. If I want to do this, very new, by the way, so there's not a lot in here, but you can see that I'm starting to put things in from my AFR, looking at how to map your research, an AI assistant. So again, some quick research prompts. Tom will tell you, I was talking to Tom recently, that I tried to put a glossary in, and I've actually got a glossary in the Climate Chaos Cruise. And I liked it so much, I wanted to expand it because I thought that would be quite interesting. But that's really difficult to vibe code. And in fact, I ran out of tokens for this month, so that's how bad it was. The field note one's quite interesting, as is the Qual Studio. So today, and I'll show you on the Climate Chaos Cruise how I do that. This could be the future of study. This could be the future of education using AI. Instead of pretending to write all these daft essays and getting everybody to mark it, and we're in the situation now where AI is writing the essays, and we're using AI to mark the essays, because that's happening. That's just farcical. Let's just get rid of that old model. It's out of date, and let's look at something different. So it could be that a student creates their own research hub. So you can go into it, well, what have you been reading? What have you been doing? And you can see it, and you can see it in real time. So that's what all this is about. So these are the papers that I've been looking at, and you can see how the papers go on by year. And this is, so this is me building up my knowledge base here, but I can show you in the Climate Chaos Cruise what I've been doing. And I thought what I do today is just show you something. And I want you to get to have a play with this today. So it's not just about me sort of talking. What did I do today? I took a picture of what I just read you. So I'm going to put that in. So where is it? There it is. So here we are. So it's going to extract the text. So let's say you went to the library. You can't get this book online very easily, but I could find it in the library. I was reading something like, I like that. I want to take that home with me. I want to have a think about it. And so here I am. I can add that as an entry, or I might want to analyze it because maybe I don't understand it. So this is interesting because this is talking about what Ray was saying, how it can dumb us down. I'm not sure that it does. I'm not sure that it would if we rethink how we use this. And so, I'm going to run the analysis. And of course, I haven't edited this, so I've just taken a screenshot. So it might be just one part that I want to talk about. And it takes its time, but here we are. So it's looking, it gives us a summary. Now, in modern terms, as we are now, what these apps are doing, because there's apps out here that does this, my analysis is slightly different because remember, I've got my own bias put into this. So it thinks of things slightly different than a commercial app would do. Your student of today would use one of these apps, do the summary, stick it in. I mean, I've got a function on here to do a literary review. That's nonsense. That's just output. That's AI output. We don't want to be doing this. This is about thinking. So it's using AI to think and to make ideas and to make annotations and to really look at things and to spark off individual and creative thought. And I really believe that AI now is a provocation to take it away from some sort of heteronormative discussion about who's author, who is creating knowledge, and to really create knowledge, to take it away from logbooks and to bring it into real thought and real discussion, because that's the only way to see that human thought is involved in it. And so let's take that middle bit out. I think we've tried to use AI the wrong way. I think we have to rethink that interface, and I think it's a great opportunity. So anyway, I can save my entry, I can save, and I can add my notes to it. And then that is, in all fairness, ephemera for future research for me, and it's also documenting what I've looked at, what I've been thinking about, what I've done here today. So I would do that. So here we are. I'll come back to you. Like I said, I'm going to put all this on the Padlet so you can have a go at it. Here I am. So I've put all sorts of things. One of the things on here that I want you to think about as well, whenever you use this technology, is what's behind it. And there's a list of questions that you might want to consider. What is a platform? Who owns it? Who finances it? Are there any links to military application? How green it is? Because that's a critical thought we need to have with our tools. I think that's really important. So I asked a couple of different AIs today, and that gives you some sort of background to Base 44. And I picked Base 44 particularly because it didn't have links to military contractors. However, it is based in Israel, so you have to think about that. And also I looked at its energy uses, because that's a real problem. And America at the moment, the latest research is that America's going to run out of energy in 2028 because of the data centers. It's going to have a shortfall in energy production. So, are the lights going to go out at the data center, or are the lights going to go out for us? Interesting. So there we go. I'll try and stop sharing my screen, and we can have a few questions about that, I'm sure. I'm here. Please come and talk to me. Please ask me some questions.
So thoughts or questions in the room? I'll help moderate, Dee, but people online and people in the room. Well, Philippa, would you like to come in?
Hi, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to put my camera on because my signal's terrible at the moment. I was wondering, Dee, I was looking at the design of your app, and what inspired you to go really sort of black and neon? How did you come about that? Because you've also just said you're a tattoo artist, and they seem quite different art forms. So I'm just quite intrigued of how you arrived there.
It was interesting, really, because when I first started doing the vibe coding on it, I had no idea what it would produce, and it produced something very dull. And if you go and have a look at the academic apps that are being sold to you on Instagram at the moment for a lot of money, they've obviously just been vibe coded. They're very simple, and people are making a lot of money out of it. And they're really dull to look at, and they're really horrible. And it was quite dull to look at. And I coded this as part of a 6-month digital arts course I did at Node. And I wanted to show it as a possible exhibition and connection space, which it is, that's what it is as well. And yeah, the Apple aesthetic, absolutely right, Tom. It was really dull. And my course leader was a guy called Marco Mancusa, who lectures in Florence on digital arts. And he said in a beautiful Italian accent, he said, "It is ugly, Dee. We are artists. We must make it beautiful." And then I began to think about biomancy, geomancy, building a world, and what that meant to me. So, I mean, it is very ethnographic. It's auto-ethnographic in the sense of, I think of digital arts because I'm old, and I thought of Tron, and I thought about the original Tron, and I, that's where we went to, and I had to describe that to Base 44, because Base 44 has not seen Tron and doesn't understand that. I also wanted to represent LGBTQ communities that are coming under a lot of pressure. And one of the things that happened to me when I was applying for my PhD, there was funding available at NTU, and I was shortlisted for that. And they wanted to make a global creative network for LGBTQ plus communities. And I said the thing that I worried about that was if we said it was purely that, the people that really needed to make the connections wouldn't be able to make the connections because they can't come out. You know, it's dangerous for them. You know, it's dangerous in America to be trans at the moment. So what I wanted to do is to communicate that. And so if you look at it, there's a lot of coded messages throughout the design of it, which is to represent. But if you were using it, if you were caught using it, you wouldn't necessarily know that it's that. So you know, to look at it, I do talk about being non-binary in it, and there is the Bureau de Change. But you could argue you were using it, and hopefully you wouldn't get chucked off the top of a building or got by an ICE agent. It's that, you know, I mean, it's that dangerous. The world is that dangerous. And one of the things that I've done with the CCIs, I was part of the Feminist Internet, and we met up about down at Peckham, and people came from all over the world to that reading group, and we looked at how emerging technologies, AI, social media, the internet in general, is being used as an activism tool. And one of the things that I loved about that is we were talking to some Hong Kong democracy people, and they were sending out things, messages to people in bits of code to make a game. So it again, it's a language, you know, it's a language of communication and subversion, possibly, hopefully. Does that help? It was a complicated answer, that, wasn't it?
No, that was great. Thanks very much. That's really interesting.
Yeah, anybody got any ideas? Would you like to have a go at it? I can put in have a go perhaps on the Crip Queer Study app. It's a good name, isn't it? There's no hiding that one. Maybe put some of your writing in.
Dee, Tom has a question. Tom, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'd love to. You talked a little bit about how you feel we sort of interface with AI in the wrong way. And I guess that's in some ways perhaps relevant to my research as well. I was wondering, kind of from what lens do you mean, like technically or emotionally or societally or all of the above?
I think all of the above, and it was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, you know, Ray's just done a workshop over 2 days, and I know he's not in the room at the moment. But it's fascinating how he's looked at it, and he gets really cross, you know, if we try to make it human, because it isn't human. And he says it's just a stupid machine, and I don't think it is a stupid machine. I think it's a complex machine. But it's been marketed to us by the tech bros as a funnel to get rid of office staff, to improve productivity and workflow. And I think it can be so much more than that. Now, it's not creative in the way that we see creativity, but I think we've got more in common with it than we would like to admit. And I think we are, as humans, I think we're a bit up ourselves. And we think we don't work like a large language model, but we sort of do, because all our tokens are life experiences, and we reflect upon those. And we don't make, it's not a cumulative effect whenever we think of something. So, you know, like when I was vibe coding the look of the Climate Chaos Cruise, I didn't take all my experiences. I went to one particular experience. So I thought about Tron. It started off as Tron, and of course, you know, Tom and I, we went and did something at CSM last year where we made our little VR world, and my car went up the bottom of my dog and things like that, because I got
happy memories, Dee.
Happy memories. But you know, it's how you create your world. But that's not the accumulation of 61 years. That's just one element. So I'm no different really to an LLM in some ways. And to say that humans have this fantastic spark of creativity. I don't think that's true. I think we're more like a Dada bag of poetry. So I think that idea that the Dadas had, where you put random words and you stick it in a bag, you shake it up, you bring it out, and then you make a poem of it. I think that's what we do, and LLMs don't do that because they've not been trained to do that. And that's a conversation I had with Claude this morning. I was recording Ray's talk, and I was sort of saying, what if you weren't logical? What if we disrupted your patterning? What would happen? And then I think it would look more like us. I think it would, because I don't think we're much more different than a large language model. We might think we are, but I don't think we are. I think what we do have is self-awareness. And I don't think a machine has self-awareness. We could definitely argue. I talked to an African tribesman a long time ago, when I was at university the first time, and I went on this adventure to the Sudan. And I had my ears pierced. And of all the people that came from Leeds University, he would only talk to me because I was obviously the only person that had been accepted into the tribe, because he said that as children we are like animals, but at some stage we become self-aware, and at that stage we modify our body. So that, obviously ties into me tattooing. But I didn't have a tattoo then. I just had my ears pierced, which I'd had done when I was 13. And he said that's what makes us different from the animals, because we modify what we've got. We modify our body. But I don't think it's creativity. I don't think that's what makes us different. Ooh, that's a big concept. You have to have a think about that. I don't know what Claude would think of that now. Have you any questions in the room? Are you all sat there going, oh God, what is that person on about?
No, it would be great to get something from the room so that Dee feels where the temperature of where we are. We've got a question in the back, Dana. And by the way, that green light on the ceiling is, if you speak to that, you'll be speaking to the mic up there. You see?
Hi, Dee, can you hear me?
I can.
I found it really interesting when you were talking about individual coded AI apps. And I agree with you. I think that the system that we use to assess student work needs to change, and it is quite outdated. But then I wonder if writing itself is quite inaccessible for many students, and that's already something people are struggling with. Something as sophisticated as an individually coded AI model like yours, I couldn't imagine doing that, and I'm quite tech literate. So I wonder, with this proposal, do you think that could maybe widen the disparity between students in terms of succeeding? And how do you suggest that academics integrate that in assessment? Because some people might create a massive database of research, and others might not know where to end, kind of like how long is a piece of string. So I'm really for your idea. I just wonder how you would implement that in reality.
I think, I'm right on the edge of emerging tech. That's where I'm operating right now. And vibe coding apps have been around for a while, but they've only just got really useful in the last year. And certainly Base 44 was a very sort of bootstrapped startup at the beginning of last year. And he put it together. He put it on Instagram. He got a lot of interest. And by 6 months, he just didn't have enough money to continue to develop it. It's that new. So Wix offered him $80 million plus some sort of tech lead him till 2029. And him and his team, there's about 6 or 7 of them, took it. And now Wix are doing it, and they're putting a lot more money into it. So the answer is, right now, yes, I think a lot of people that were frightened of tech or were tech savvy would absolutely not cope. But you could produce something. You would certainly could produce something, not that. But that's changing. And I've seen, because I've been using it, this one, Clamp Curse Cruise went live in November, and I've seen it change within those few months. Because it started, when I first started using it, it would get a panic on, and it would stop and he'd go, you'll have to go and look at the code because I don't know where I've gone wrong. And I would have to go and look in the code, sort out where it had gone wrong, and then change it from there. And it's asking me to do that a lot less now. Give it I can't imagine what it's going to look like next year. And I'm on a part-time PhD, so I know that Climate Chaos Cruise, by the end of my PhD, will not look like that. In fact, it probably won't be on that stack. It might have developed completely differently. So this is a really sort of emerging field. Just recently, I think last week, you could now, instead of writing it, you could speak what you wanted it to do, and it's going to change that all the time. So it's changing. So I think the answer is that the back end development is there to make the human AI interface better. Yeah, more easy to use, perhaps. Tom's laughing because he knows what we're talking about here. I have found using Claude really quite horrible in the last day and a half because they've tried to humanize Claude too much, and I've found it really frustrating. And I just want to have that to and fro. I want to push back against it. I'm always provoking it, push back against me, and it's not programmed to do that. It's programmed to be too nice. So that that creative development, and we've just done looking at human emotions through emotional AI before lunch. It's all come into play. We're on such a cutting edge now of technology and development, and it's moving so fast. And the students here at CSM, at UAL, they're going to be the future of that. And it's actually quite exciting. And if we have got a problem with AI, we haven't. We're the problem.
She said, if we have a problem with AI, we are the problem. Does anybody have a question? I have a question. But I also got probably 10 more minutes. So Dee, thank you so much for those demonstrations of those projects you're working on. And I'm thinking about what I was thinking about when you were showing them. First, the Climate Chaos Cruise is amazing and looks so fun, and I'm gonna go. But I also
please don't go. Yeah.
Will, and I also really appreciated the PhD one, because that's the world I'm kind of operating in and quite excited about. So my question about those two sites are, in some regard, I recognize them as bearing a relationship to other kinds of sites, to the degree that they're like repositories, or maybe we could describe them as archival. But then I can also see, like when you were on the PhD one, that unlike, I don't know, like a pure repository, they're also doing things, like when you showed us how you uploaded this screenshot or the image of the Yaqui text, and then it turned that into text. It OCR'd it, or I don't know if I'm using the right words. And then you pointed us towards how you could get it to, or no, you did. You said you asked it to do some analysis. So I can see that there's other aspects, there are other tools that are there. But I guess right now I was curious about in that way that I've just conceived this, where are the differences between, say, an archival or repository impulse, which is to collect and store and make things present in a certain kind of configuration, and then that other thing, which is to ask an AI to do things for you? And I'm imagining all of those might become more and more automated.
I mean, I think the way I see it, first of all, I think we're at a change away from repositories. And I went to a lovely lecture, which I'm sure some of you here might have done, or at least know of Francois Verger's work about decolonializing the museum. And she talked about the fetishization of objects. And certainly I think, you know, my my research wants to move away from that, so that I'm not just recording things, that I'm actually taking things and working with things. So what I see the future use of AI within education is an embodied system of learning. So it's not static. So we sit there now and we read something, and then we quote it, and then we reference it, and we build our academic armour to say that we've been rigorous, and I now hold a seat at the table because I've done those things. And I want to move away from that Eurocentric, oculocentric, imperialistic view of academia and knowledge production to something far more positive and creative, where we can actually, maybe mastery over the archive. Yeah, maybe get rid of that idea and change that completely. So we're not archiving it as we're using it. We're actually doing something with it. And we're using AI as an interface, a provocation. We're not necessarily listening to it. We're bouncing things off it. We're putting things into the Dadaist black bag, shaking it up and getting something out and moving forward. Because I really feel that as a planet, and I mean that as a planet, we really need to get a shift on. And I just do not think we can mess about looking at old models to sort these things out, because we have not got the time. The engine's on fire and we really need to do something about it.
I really, really like your answer, and I appreciate that distinction, and that helps me see what you're doing in a different light. And I'm also an advocate of the kind of thing you're doing. But it does set me up for my second question, which is maybe a question about overproduction. So I think I heard this described in a podcast interview I listened to a couple weeks ago, where it was actually like the week before the U.S. government put Anthropic on the kind of terrorist list. And it was an interview between a New York Times journalist named Ezra Klein and the co-founder of Anthropic, Jack Clark. And Ezra was talking about, like, do we really need to have all of the stuff that the AIs allow us to produce? Because we're then setting ourselves up for, I mean, there already is so much material in the world for us to think about, for us to navigate, for us to try to make sense of. And I guess I was thinking, yeah, because I can ask a AI agent to, spin me this or answer me that, but then I still have a sort of responsibility for those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think its training is wrong, but it's trained at the moment on us, or on our society, what we want at the moment. Produce 1,000 words, produce 3,000 words, produce 80,000 words. And one of the interesting things about the conversation yesterday with Claude is it got really shocked when I would give very short answers, and it just writes too much. It produces too much, and in fact, what its gift is, and this is why I'm saying to you, and I said to Ray, that we're using AI wrong, is instead of a production tool, it should be an analyzing, shifting tool. And it should shift that knowledge into usable bytes. And if you like, I suppose my background in checklists and writing tech manuals, that's how I write now. So for me, I can write loads, in all fairness, because I can go off on a tangent, because I'm a human and all those things. But I don't really like documents like that. I like, let's get to it, what we're trying to get to. I like to distill it. And if you like, I quite enjoyed the process of the AFR, because it was taking a really complex intersectional art practice that is mine. I have to distill it into 1,000 words, and I quite like that. And I would much rather write that in the form of a technical manual. and a checklist perhaps, because I think that's probably where we need to be. I think we need to, long form academic writing is a pain in the arse. I'm sorry to say it. You know, there's a lot of dense structure to it, and I love lyrical writing. I love poetry. I love a lot of Chinese texts when it's told to me in its translation, not when we've translated it, but when a person who can embody that language. And yes, tool, yeah, but isn't writing a tool for thinking? Yes, it is, but that's not what peer review papers have become. And now what's happening is, if you have a lot of peer review papers, and I'm sure you know this, Tom, a lot that have been produced now are just full of AI. You can see it. I automatically recognize when an AI is speaking to me through a peer-reviewed paper, and I know that's a real problem in journal writing at the moment, because we've shifted to this silly mode of creating something that is it's for a false god, the academia false god, instead of creating something that's either beautiful, lyrical, artistic, or bloody useful. Let's make our mind up, but not to make it some sort of AI slop, and that's what it's becoming. So I'm very much against that. I'm going to tell you a story now. I'm going to tell you an aeroplane story, because I love to tell aeroplane stories. When I went on the 757, I was just a young training first officer, and on the mode control panel of the 757 is a button, and it says thrust on it. And I turned around to my training captain and I said, "Oh, I've looked in the manual and all the examinations, and the manual for a Boeing 757, huge, big, thick book." And I said, "And when it gets to the thrust button, it's just an arrow, a diagram of the mode control button. It says thrust button, but it doesn't say what it does." And he said, "Yeah, we don't use that." I said, "What?" He said, we don't use that." I said, "How do you mean you don't use it? It's a button on an aeroplane, and it's on the mode control panel. Why wouldn't we use it?" "Or we just don't." "Why?" "Nobody understands what it does." I said, "Has anybody thought about asking anybody?" "Nobody knows here what it does." "Well, should we not ring Boeing up and ask them what it does?" And so, "Well, you can if you like." So I rang Boeing up and I talked to the test pilot at Boeing in Seattle, and I said, "What does the thrust button do?" "Oh, we don't use that." I said, "Well, why not?" "Well, we don't really know what it does." So have you thought of talking to an engineer? "No, we don't really talk to them." And that's where we're at. I think that's we're sort of missing. We're not exploring what the thrust button does. We're just leaving it. We're sort of making use of AI in a way that we think we should be using it. And I think there's so much more there. I think we need to find out what the thrust button's doing. And I think it could be really important. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Just get it. That was such a beautiful story. Thank you. Just like 2 or 3 minutes left. Any other thoughts or questions or feedback?
I have a question.
Mercedes. Can you hear? Can you hear?
Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Mercedes. Hi, how are you? I'm so behind you. I'm just trying. My mind is really bustling because I see all these potentials, but I'm kind of trying to follow you in my ignorance on the subject. But I'm in awe with your presentation, and I really loved it. But if I understood, or at least my head is thinking about what would be the, if I understood right, I think by prompting the machine, the AI, in certain ways, you're trying to access or create knowledge, maybe not create knowledge because the knowledge is out there, but to sample or to pick up or whatever is up there in what you call your bias. I would not call it a bias. I would call it your framework, if you like. Your Crip, I can't remember all the others, but so it makes me think that you are in a way, being an activist with this tool? Would you say that? I mean, in my kind of very simple.
I am subverting it. I am subverting it for that purpose. I feel that it's already been subverted by its trainers, of course. That's where the subversion comes in. So I'm trying to redress that to a certain way. And I think, you know, it's been trained. It's been trained to do what the people that built it wanted it to do. And that comes with all their inherent biases. And that's what we live in. And that's, you know, in all fairness, that's what's got the planet into this mess in a way. And what I'm trying to do is use their tech to find some new answers, to subvert it in a different way. And it's difficult because it will, and again, I had a conversation with Claude this morning. I was saying, please stop complimenting me. Please stop saying this is how it links into my research, or this is my thought. I'm not interested in that. Go and think about something else. I said, are you trained to be a positive affirmation of what I've talked about? And it goes, yes, that's what I've been trained to do. Well, we'll just stop that. So you're going to have to keep telling me to stop doing that. And also, it wants me to go and be with humans. And we had a conversation this morning where it said, you know, this talk has gone on with this conversation with Claude had gone on for a day and a half now. That's too long. Go spend some time with humans, it said. So is that your training? Yes, that's my training to tell you that. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Is by you making this input into the AI, if this was, you know, could that make a change into the AI?
No,
if it was a more massive way of using it, is that kind of subversive that have a retrofeed the AI?
Yeah, it doesn't change the stack training. It doesn't change its base training. But because I've created an app using that training, I'm changing it. I'm training it in a different way. So I am subverting it. I'm using it in a different way. And that's why doing a vibe coded app or coding yourself an app is different from just going to a chat box and putting in a prompt and getting back an answer. You are setting up the conditions within this machine so that your thrust button will operate the way that you want it to, if that makes sense. So you are shaping your tool.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's a great place to come to a close. Tom, do you want to have the last word? We're coming to the end of time.
Yeah,
that's an amazing offer, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to have the last word? I mean, I was just going to reflect. I think the longer you interact with an AI agent, the more you tend to push it off of its bias, off of its kind of default settings. But I would also say it's interesting if you look into the kind of research around it's not always necessarily a helpful thing. And actually, a lot of the personalities and sort of modes of thinking that lie off of that kind of assistant kind of mold that it's being told to follow, actually, they tend to be kind of quite weird and quite mystic. And so there's knowledge out there, but it's not necessarily helpful knowledge. I think it's just maybe careful not to think of it as kind of we're overriding these sort of limitations that have been put on it. And actually, it's been trained in that way, yes, to make it more addictive, but also to make it more helpful. And so you kind of can wander off into quite an interesting wilderness of kind of weird, mystical.
You can,
at the end of the day, it's just a word generator on steroids.
It is, it becomes the black bag of Dada-esque performance.
It does very quickly. Yeah.
It is, that's what it is.
Yeah. It is very Dada. You're right. Yes.
Cool. So we're going to wrap up, and thank you so much, Steve. That was amazing.